Today's lesson is egg tarts around the world. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And it's our second day talking about egg tarts around the world. Of course, you know egg tarts here in Taiwan. They're sold at bakeries all over the place. And, of course, we love them. There was a big fad of egg tarts back in 15, 20 years ago. But they're still around. And we talked about basically where they came from. They actually came from some monks in Portugal, right?
That's exactly right. Yes, the monks were doing some cooking of some other type of food. They had too many egg yolks, and instead of throwing the egg yolks away and just wasting them, someone came up with a wonderful recipe for this tasty little dessert, these egg tarts. And, of course, they become quite popular there. A local factory bought the recipe, started making their own. And then as the Portuguese began to travel and trade and settle around the world, they brought egg tarts with them. And people all over the place, especially it seems here in Asia, fell in love with egg tarts. And so today, we're going to be looking at 3 different local Asian egg tart cultures and styles of egg tart as we travel from Hong Kong to Macau and right here at home to Taiwan. So let's get into some of these very tasty, delicious treats and other good reasons to take holidays in the nearby area because you'll be able to try egg tarts almost no matter where you go around Asia. So let's begin in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong egg tarts. In Asia, egg tarts were first sold in the Chinese city of Guangzhou. Because Guangzhou was a major trading port, its cuisine was heavily influenced by European tastes, including a love of egg tarts. From Guangzhou, egg tarts made their way to Hong Kong, where they remain particularly popular to this day. Unlike Portuguese egg tarts, Hong Kong tarts have a thick, crumbly pastry crust and a less sweet filling.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 cuisine， 指一国或地区的特色菜肴、烹调法，尤其是指精致或高级的菜肴。例如 This method of noodle making is primarily used in Italian cuisine. 这种制面方式主要用于意大利料理。或者 Thai cuisine consists of dishes that contain many different elements. 泰国菜是由许多包含不同元素的料理组成。接着看到这个片语To this day 表示直到今日到现在。例如 To this day, I still remember what my grandmother taught me about the importance of being kind and generous. 时至今日，我仍然记得祖母教我善良和慷慨的重要。或是 To this day, Warren is still scared of spiders. Warren 一直到现在都还是很怕蜘蛛。下一个看到名词 crust 指酥皮、面包皮或是外壳。例如The crust on the outside of the bread was a little bit burnt. 那个面包的酥皮有点焦。也可以说 Benjamin asked for the crust to be removed from his sandwiches. Benjamin 要求他的三明治要切边。
Okay, so of course, as you know, Hong Kong is in southern China there, and we're talking about Hong Kong egg tarts. And in Asia, this large continent in which we live, egg tarts were first sold in the Chinese city of Guangzhou, sometimes called Canton. Hence, we have Cantonese to describe the language that they speak there and in Hong Kong. And yes, they were first sold in Guangzhou. Okay, so I guess the Portuguese sailors sailed up the Pearl River and decided to try to sell these things to the locals there. And that's where they were first sold. And I guess the people in Guangzhou really liked the taste of them.
Absolutely. Of course, Guangzhou is the open trade port for foreigners to come and use. So, of course, a lot of the foreign empires had representatives and did their trade in Guangzhou. So that's a logical place for this Portuguese food to first appear in China, in the city that was opened for trade to foreigners. It says because Guangzhou is a major trading port, its cuisine was heavily influenced by European tastes, including a love of egg tarts. Yeah, Guangzhou might have also been the first place that German sausages or English beer or things like that were sold or enjoyed by people in China. And of course, the cuisine of these different cultures and countries was something that they brought with them along with their trade goods and their languages and their religions and things like that. When we say cuisine, we just mean your style of food, right? So if we're talking about French food or Italian food or German food, you could also say, oh, French cuisine, Italian cuisine, German cuisine. I really like Japanese cuisine, but I'm not such a fan of Korean cuisine or something you might say. Japanese cuisine has a lot of fish. Korean cuisine is more about barbecue and meat and things like that. But basically, it's just a style of cooking or a regional style or type of cooking. So the cuisine in Guangzhou, the food you could find in Guangzhou, was heavily influenced by European tastes, bringing in European recipes and European goods and ingredients, and also making food that Europeans, traders, would have enjoyed. And then it says from Guangzhou, egg tarts made their way to Hong Kong, where they remain particularly popular to this day. So Guangzhou, Hong Kong had a long relationship. Both of them were trade cities. Both of them had big foreign populations. So it makes sense. They're also fairly close to each other. So it makes sense that anything that was popular in Guangzhou would quickly become popular in Hong Kong with the same type of people. But maybe in Guangzhou, since, of course, it's part of China and lost, its foreign influence, especially after Chairman Mao and the Communist Party took over, maybe they're not quite as popular there, kind of faded away a little bit in history. But Hong Kong, being a British colony for many, many years, they stayed there, they remained popular, and they are still popular to this day up until now, until contemporary times that we live in. Egg tarts in Hong Kong are still popular and easy to find. And so how are they a little bit different from the traditional Portuguese type?
Well, unlike Portuguese egg tarts, Hong Kong tarts have a thick, crumbly pastry crust and a less sweet filling. So, of course, they put their own touches on the Portuguese egg tart. They thought, well, that's good, but we could do something else to it to make it even better or make it more suitable to local tastes. They have this thick, crumbly pastry crust. If something's crumbly, it kind of falls apart easily into little crumbs, which are little pieces of the crust. That would be different from flaky. If it's flaky, then it comes off in these little layers, which is kind of cool. I think some of those Portuguese egg tarts have kind of a flaky crust as opposed to a crumbly one. But this is how we describe the crust that was made in Hong Kong. They have this thick, crumbly pastry crust. And then the filling isn't so sweet, okay? They kind of hold back on the sugar a little bit and maybe put more of the egg yolk in there or maybe some other kinds of spices or whatever. And, of course, as you know, the bread part of a tart that lines the little pan there is the crust.
That's right. The outside edge of a pizza also, we would call that the crust. It's the breadiest part of the food that you're talking about there. And yes, I guess if it's a less sweet filling, less sugar, less cream, maybe slightly eggier tasting than some of the other styles. So there you go. That's the Hong Kong style of egg tart. I'm not sure I've actually had an egg tart in Hong Kong. I didn't think of it as a place, of course, Macau and here, but maybe I should definitely try a Hong Kong egg tart next time I am there. Speaking of Macau, let's turn our attention to that style. The Macanese egg tarts in the second part of our article.
Macanese egg tarts. In 1989, an Englishman named Andrew Stowe opened a bakery in the then Portuguese colony of Macau. Stowe's signature creation was an egg tart consisting of a Portuguese-style pastry shell filled with an English-style custard. It soon became quite popular, and today Stowe's bakery sells more than 13,000 every day.
第二部分介绍动词 consist， 表示组成或是构成。我们可以说 The band consists of 4 musicians. 那个乐团由4个音乐家组成。又或者说 The scientific method consists of 7 steps. 这个科学方法由7个步骤组成。
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the history. It's fairly recent. In 1989, an Englishman named Andrew Stowe opened a bakery in the then Portuguese colony of Macau. So this Englishman, of course, was traveling the world. He was a businessman, and he decided, hey, I'd like to open a bakery in Macau. At the time, Macau was a colony of Portugal. It was actually quite an old colony. I think they established it way back in the 1500s or so. But in any case, he set up this bakery in Macau. At the time, it was still part of Portugal. I believe it reverted back to China in 1999, whereas Hong Kong went back to China in 1997.
Very interesting. I almost thought that there was the date wrong. Was there 1989? If you had said 1889, I think that would have made more sense. I had no idea. They were so recent, of course, since Macau was a Portuguese colony and egg tarts were invented in Portugal. Why would it take an Englishman to do this just 20 or 30 years ago? Very, very interesting. It says Stowe's signature creation in his new bakery there in Macau. Stowe's signature creation was an egg tart consisting of a Portuguese-style pastry shell filled with an English-style custard. So already it's a little bit of a combination food here. We're taking different things from different parts of the world that taste good on their own and putting them together to create this signature creation of this new bakery. Something that is a signature creation, well, if it's signature, it is associated or linked to a specific place or person or something like that. It is the one that gets the most attention. It is the one that made that place famous. So if we're talking about Din Tai Fung, their signature dish would probably be the pork xiaolongbao. They serve many other types of food, but most of the tourists who go there will definitely want to try those pork xiaolongbao. They're famous for that. It's the thing that everyone wants to try. It's the thing that put this place on the map, as we might say. It's the thing that made this place famous. And a creation is just something that you create. It could be something that you invented and you were the first person to do, or maybe it's just something that you're doing in kind of a unique, special way that is a bit different from everyone else, and it's also the thing that made you famous. It's your signature creation. We can maybe say that for a lot of the tea shops in Taiwan, and especially in Taichung, boba milk tea with that very sweet kind of flavor, that's the signature creation. You can get many other types, but that's the famous one. So this was an egg tart, and what was it exactly made up of?
Well, it was a pastry, a Portuguese-style pastry shell filled with an English-style custard.
So maybe a little sweeter than that Hong Kong style.
Yeah, custard sounds very similar to the filling they used in the Portuguese egg tarts at the beginning, but custard, of course, has milk, eggs, and sugar in it, probably in different proportions. I remember I did like custard when I was a kid. I haven't had it in a long time. It's probably too sweet, but in any case, this is an English bloke living in Macau, and he thought, well, yeah, I like the Portuguese-style egg tart, but hey, I also like my custard from the old country, so let's try to mix the two together. And this particular concoction, this particular recipe, soon became quite popular. And today, Stowe's Bakery sells more than 13,000 every day. So I guess that was the right decision there. He really struck a chord with that idea. He knew how to make something that the locals and visitors would like. And the rest is history. That's a lot of egg tarts to sell in one day, isn't it?
That is a lot.
That's a lot. So he's probably a happy rich man there living in Macau. And everything's going great for him and anybody else who sells this type of egg tart. So so far we've talked about the Hong Kong egg tarts and the Macanese egg tarts. Now let's come home to Taiwan and talk about egg tarts in Taiwan. Let's listen to the final part of our lesson right now.
Egg tarts in Taiwan. But if you love egg tarts, there's no need to even leave Taiwan, since the pastries are also quite popular here. For example, millefeuille tarts, which feature a flaky layered crust resembling a flour, are sold throughout Taiwan nowadays. In short, egg tarts can be found almost everywhere. So next time you're traveling, why not sample the local variety? It's sure to be excellent.
第三部分看到动词 resemble， 意思是与点点点相像或是类似。例如 The clouds resemble the giant dragon in the sky. 云朵在空中看起来像一条巨大的龙。再看一个例子 This article resembles one you wrote last year. 这篇文章跟你去年写的一篇很像。另外补充这个字的名词 resemblance， R-E-S-E-M-B-L-A-N-C-E resemblance， 指相貌相似。举个例子 Betty's latest painting bears an impressive resemblance to the view outside her window. Betty 的最新画作与她窗外的景色极为相似。或是 I want to buy a house that has some resemblance to my childhood home. 我想买栋与我童年故居有点相像的房子。最后看到 nowadays 这个单字，它是副词，指的是现今或是如今。举例来说 Nowadays, people are increasingly concerned about various environmental problems. 如今，人们越来越关心各种环境问题。或者 Nowadays, rock music is less popular than it used to be. 如今，摇滚乐不像以前那么流行了。
All right, everybody. So far, we've been talking about egg tarts from different parts of the world. We talked about the ones from Hong Kong, the ones from Macau, but now we're going to talk about the ones from right here in Taiwan. If you love egg tarts, there's no need to even leave Taiwan, since the pastries are also quite popular here. Okay, so you probably won't be able to get Hong Kong style or Macau style egg tarts here in Taiwan. You might be able to, but you'll have to look for them. But still, you don't really have to, because the local variety is pretty tasty itself.
Absolutely. And for most people, probably similar enough to what you'd find in Macau or Hong Kong, not to feel like you're missing out. But, of course, there are also people who want to be very original and special and provide customers who are bored with the traditional egg tart with something new and interesting and kind of surprising to tempt them back into the bakery. So, Taiwan, it says, for example, millefeuille tarts, which feature a flaky layered crust resembling a flower, are sold throughout Taiwan nowadays. Wow, that sounds rather spectacular and very, very luxurious. A millefeuille tart. Well, a millefeuille is actually a very traditional French pastry. It means 1,000 leaves. That's the translation of millefeuille. And usually it's kind of cut into a sort of long rectangular shape, and it will have many thin layers of pastry. Those are the 1,000 leaves. Of course, there won't really be 1,000, maybe 20 or 30. But of course, when you eat it, it can flake, it can kind of fall apart. And usually on top of the millefeuille, you'll kind of have a white icing with a black sort of flower pattern, kind of like those flower patterns that a talented coffee maker or barista will create with the cream on top of your espresso or something like that. So beautiful little things, very sweet, very light, and very flaky. So they have this flaky layered crust, just like you would expect with a millefeuille, and it resembles a flower. It looks like a flower. If something resembles something, it looks like it, but not exactly the same. So this isn't a recreation of something or a copy of something. It's basically just trying to look like something, often in an artistic kind of creative, attractive, appealing way. So, you know, if you're talking about art, people can do paintings that resemble people or resemble animals or places. It's not a photograph. It's not a perfect representation. It's an artistic sort of variation on it, an artistic interpretation. And these wonderful millefeuille tarts are sold throughout Taiwan nowadays, making me feel very silly because I don't think I've ever had one. And apparently they're available everywhere. They're sold throughout Taiwan nowadays, these days, in the times we're living. I have to make a confession, Roger. I think the last egg tart I had in Taiwan came from Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Oh, no.
It wasn't bad.
They are pretty good,
not
actually.
Not exactly traditional, though. I should go for higher level egg tarts.
Right, go to some high-class bakeries in the Cine District or whatever.
It's time to stop slumming.
Indeed. So, of course, you can find these throughout Taiwan. Nowadays, or in modern times, they are quite common. You probably don't have to look too far for them. I bet you can probably even find them in Taidong or Puli or places like that because they are so popular. And remember, they've got that crust resembling a flower. Okay, so when's the last time you saw a pastry that had a crust that looks like a flower? I can't really think of it right offhand, but in any case, I think I'm going to go to a bakery after our lesson and see if I can find some of these wonderful treats. And here in the final paragraph, we wrap up the lesson. It says, in short, or to give it to you in a short form, egg tarts can be found almost everywhere. So next time you're traveling, why not sample the local variety? It's sure to be excellent. Excellent. Oh, what a pun. What a joke there. Excellent. Okay. Now, of course, this begs the question, where else would they have these kinds of egg tarts in the world? I'm sure there are different varieties in Europe, of course, German style, French style, Spanish style, or whatever. But is there such a thing as a Canadian egg tart? Or a Mexican egg tart?
Well, we have a fair number of Portuguese immigrants in Canada, both from Brazil and Portugal, so I imagine we would have one. I'm also thinking about a Japanese egg tart, because Japanese bakeries are famous, and they're also well known for kind of taking Western goods and sort of refining them and making them really special. Yeah, I'm sure if you went almost anywhere in the world, maybe not Antarctica, but most other places, you might be able to find, without too much great difficulty, local egg tart variations. You can eat your way around the globe on these wonderful, delicious treats.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our description of egg tarts around Asia. Let's go on now to listen to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分提到，由于广州是一个主要的贸易港口，当地的菜肴深受欧洲口味的影响，包括对蛋挞的喜爱。文中是用 including a love of egg tarts 来表达包括对蛋挞的喜爱。这边我们来比较一下 including 和 included 还有 inclusive 的用法。 including 是介系词，它表示包含包括，那它的用法就是 including 加上名词。举例来说， Everyone including the principal enjoyed the speech。 所有的人包括校长都很喜欢那一场演讲。至于 included 它是形容词，表示包括在内的，被包括的，那它的用法是名词加上 included。 所以刚刚的例句也可以改成 Everyone, the principal included, enjoyed the speech。 好，再来看到 inclusive 它是形容词，那它的用法是 inclusive of 加上名词，那这是比较正式的用法。举例来说， These prices are not inclusive of tax。 这些价格不含税。好，那么课文第二部分介绍了澳门蛋挞。他提到在1989年，英国人 Andrew Stoll 在当时的葡萄牙殖民地澳门开了一家面包店。那它的招牌产品是一种由葡式油酥外皮和英式卡士达馅料组成的蛋挞。文中是用 an egg tart consisting of 去表达一种由什么什么组成的蛋挞。 consisting 它是从 which consisted 简化而来。那么 consist of 它就有包含啊，有什么组成构成的意思。它的用法是整体加上 consist of 再加部分。特别注意它不能用被动语态来表示哦。那我们这边也顺便补充其他表达组成构成的方式。第一个可以用到 make up 这个片语，那主动用法是部分加上 make up 加上整体。那被动用法呢是整体加上 be made up of 再加部分。举例来说， The book is made up of 10 chapters。 那本书是由10个章节所组成。第二个我们可以用到动词 compose 来表达组成构成，那它的用法就跟 make up 相同，同样分成主动和被动的句型。我们就可以用部分 compose 加整体，或者是整体 be composed of 再加部分。第三个呢，我们可以用动词 comprise 来表达，那它的句型有2种，你可以用整体加上 comprise， 或者是整体 be comprised of 再加部分，或者是也可以用部分加上 comprise 加整体。举例来说， The album comprises 10 tracks。 那张专辑是由10首歌曲所组成。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Cuisine. Italian cuisine is famous for its pasta dishes. Crust. Alfred used butter to make the crust soft and rich in flavor. Signature. The band's signature sound is a mix of rock and electronic music. Creation. Mrs. Mahoney's cake creation was not only beautiful, but also delicious. Consist. The new committee will consist of experts from different fields. Resemble. This new library resembles the old one that was torn down last year. Nowadays. Nowadays, many people prefer to shop online instead of going to stores.
Discussion Starter starts now!
It's time now for our discussion starter, and the question is, which type of egg tart is your favorite, or which would you most like to try and why?
Well, I'm going to go with the second question there. And I think I'm lucky. I'd most like to try Taiwanese millefeuille egg tarts. I think I'd like those because I really like millefeuille. I like egg tarts. I've never had the two. And I won't have to buy a plane ticket to enjoy them. They're apparently available right around me. I just have to find out where.
Does sound pretty tasty, but I'm ready to take a special trip over to Macau and try the egg tarts there because I remember liking custard when I was a kid, and this does sound like an interesting combination. An egg tart that actually tastes like custard. It does sound oh so yummy.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.